What's up? What's up?
Here's a preview for right here. She
Is that good angle?
I think that's the best angle of me there is.
Squeeze in here. All right.
What's up?
I think this is week 6.
Is it?
I don't know if I
We've been doing
changed the
this 6
number.
times?
6 times. That's sad.
6.
So what? So this week we're at Aviator Tap House in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina, and I'm actually drinking not one of the casks. I'm drinking the Frost Nipper, and when you get the Frost Nipper at Aviator, you get the special rim. And she was telling me tonight how she makes it, and it has like chocolate, and it's got like the peppermint, but also some like cocoa beans, and it's different this year than it was in the past.
Yeah.
Well, what are you drinking tonight?
I have the cast Saison. I don't know what's, it's just a Saison.
Yeah, tonight
cast,
was
it's good.
King Ralph, Saison, ugly, double ugly.
Ugly,
Yep.
yeah.
But they were all normal. They didn't have it wasn't like a bourbon barrel.
This is good though.
But this Saturday, and I don't have my tickets with me, but it's the anniversary party at Aviator, but they also are releasing their Devil's Nightmare. This is 14.5 Imperial Stout. Is that right? No. Quad. That's right.
Quad Ale.
And it will be, I think it's only at the release party.
Correct. They're canning it, but it's not available yet.
Yeah, so you'll get, I don't know if there's any tickets still available. You can go to aviator.com to find out, but it's like $19.90 something a person. You get 2 cans, 2 koozies, I think a lanyard, maybe something else, and a tour. And then I think there's more on tap. You can, that's right. And yeah, 2 cans.
You did say.
And
you need to listen.
there'll be some on tap, other beers as well. There's going to be, they're going to have food there from
and you're
Aviator.
watching, and you still didn't hear.
It's an all-day event. I think there's music too. So if you're,
Maine lobster.
the Maine
the
lobster
truck
food
guys are
truck.
gonna be there? Oh, that's good.
So it'll be a great day.
All right, there's a good topic.
What's the weather
your
gonna be?
favorite food truck?
My favorite food truck.
Have you had the little one that makes the little donuts? That came to Holly Springs. That was pretty good. They had a breakfast food truck event at the Holly Springs.
Well, I tell you, some of the
So it's all
ones that
breakfast
I really think are good, I haven't had yet. You know what I mean? Like you see them, you're
yeah.
like,
You're
oh, I really
that's
want to do
gotta
that.
be good.
Speaking of that, December 3rd in Wilmington at Flytrap Brewery, they're doing a pint night, and part of the portion of the pint sales will go to Call's Beer to buy Christmas presents. But it's a joint event. It's Flytrap's hosting it, but Funky Fresh Food Truck, and their food looks phenomenal. They're actually collecting toys for a drive they're doing for
Because if
kids.
your food is going to be funky,
Funky Fresh.
you need it to be fresh.
Funky Fresh.
And phenomenal.
And then,
phenomenal.
there's a new one. I don't know if it's new, but I've been seeing it lately. The
Funk food.
it's the it's beignets, but it's like something boys or something Bayou Boy. I don't know. It's kind of the French.
I think they were there. Yeah.
The Nolans deal. Have you ever
What?
been to New Orleans?
No, I have not been to New Orleans.
That is a city that is New Orleans. Nolans. I mean, how do you say it? Big Easy.
New Orleans.
New Orleans. New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Nolans.
New Orleans.
If you haven't been to New Orleans, Nolans, you should go. It is, and after you go down Bourbon Street, you might say it like that a few different ways. But to me, it's a great city, unbelievable food, but it's a 3 or 4 day, maybe 4 day max town. I mean, like
It's like Vegas.
a little bit.
You want to get out of there after a while.
But now, look, if I had a choice, because I'm not a big gambler, Vegas or Nolans, I'm going New Orleans like any day, like tomorrow. I would go tomorrow. There's nothing like the smell of urine and trash and horse manure from the cops, And it's like garbage smell too in the morning. Nothing like, it's great.
That sounds wonderful.
Food is phenomenal, and it's a good time. If you like to get trashed, it's a town to go to, but it's also good to go and watch. Just walk up and down
People
Bourbon. People watch. Maybe get up on one of
I
their
like
balconies.
that show with the alligators. I know it's not New
that's
Orleans,
not
but
quite
what are you
the
talking
same.
about? What, you know what I'm talking about?
Swamp People.
Is that the one where they shoot the gators or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I saw that once.
The beignets.
That's crazy.
have
They
you-
have like captioning for the people talking.
Oh yeah.
'Cause you
Oh.
can't even understand.
Okay, so years ago I worked in a call center, and we took calls from all over the world.
I talked
But
to that person.
in the country, after working there for years, when people would call, you knew where they were from, what state. You knew their zip code.
Yep.
The first time I talked to like a full-blown Cajun,
Yeah.
I know, I was like, it was like, you know, like for a minute, and I'm like, I'm sorry, excuse me, will you repeat that? Like, I had no idea what this dude
My
said.
favorite
like,
part, because I worked at the same place, and I ended up with that territory, so I had...
No.
Oh, it was a different call center?
No. This is
Oh, okay. So
this
a
is
different...
in G Vegas.
Oh, okay. So I had a different call center then.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had Louisiana as a territory. And I remember, I don't think his name was Bobby, but his last name was most certainly Boucher.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, Waterboy! Yeah.
Oh, man.
I didn't say it though, because I was like, this guy's probably heard this like a million times. And he was like, Boucher.
Cafe
Yeah.
Du Monde is the place to get.
Yeah. But you know what? The last time I went to Cafe Du Monde, it was, I mean, it's a tourist deal, but they weren't quite as good. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It just seemed like it was a little more run down, a little more dirty. I mean, they're churning so much, those tables there. But there's some great food in New Orleans. I mean, I love it. Get you some oysters, hurricanes. So
All right,
I'm
so
there.
what do you got over
Wait.
there?
I'm there.
Here it
One of my
goes.
first times I go,
Story.
and I'm there during spring break.
Something happened.
Somebody's spring break, and it is Bourbon Street is packed, and I'm still a young man at the time. I'm probably 25, maybe 26. You know, so I thought I was older. And these two co-eds come along, and they're like, "Hey, can you tell me where Pat O'Brien's is? We want to get a hurricane." I'm like, "Yeah, you go down there, take a right. It's right there." And I was with these older guys that were probably my age, but now, and they walk away and they're like, "What are you doing? Like that was your opportunity." And I'm like,
You're young and innocent.
but there is somebody sitting around this table that has a better story, and I'm not sure if we should tell that tonight or if we should save that for a different time. But it is, it makes a Dumb and Dumber story sound like my story. I wonder who that is that has that story sitting around the table tonight. Oh my! When we tell that story on this, ratings go off.
The story. I want to
Oh,
hear it now.
you want to hear it now?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell it or do you want me to tell it? So a friend of mine, who will go nameless, and some other friends go to Europe. London. Land in London. They got little backpacks, they're trekking around, and here comes a double-decker bus. And what was it, Tropicana Girls?
Yeah.
Well, this is, okay, so if you think about girls, famous girls that might be not in a lewd industry, but very famous, scantily clad girls, I mean, who would you think about?
Don't say it out loud, because...
No, not scantily clad.
Victoria's Secret, but no.
No, maybe sports related.
What is your definition of scantily clad?
Sports related. Dallas Cowgirls. A double-decker bus of the Dallas Cowgirls comes along and asks these fine young gentlemen if they want to go with them to this wherever they're going. And they were like, "No, we've got some stuff we're going to go see."
Because they were walking, right?
You still on the safe side of the table.
Yeah, I mean, like, what? The Dallas Cowgirls asked you to go with them on their double-decker bus, and you were like, "No,
We're just walking.
We're gonna go look at some old churches and a couple statues."
This happened the year before Dumb and Dumber came
Give,
out.
give me your.
This whole movie was about.
I know, that's right.
Give me your card. Give me your card.
He should have got some credit.
Oh, that is horrific. But I mean, I had a similar. But I don't think if they just said, "Hey, will you come with us to Pat O'Brien's?" I'd have been like, "Absolutely."
You would have screwed it up at some point, for sure. I don't know when. I don't know how. But I feel
Never mind.
confident.
I'm gonna not say what I was
I
gonna
feel
say.
confident that you would have messed that up.
So-
we'll use a different word. You would have messed that up.
Tonight,
500 in honor of 500 BC.
I know nothing about this beer except it's by Humboldt, which I'm familiar with. 500 BC, but it's a double IPA. So
I don't know like this so I can see it.
this is what I'm going to be checking out this week.
Flip your screen.
500 BC by Humboldt, double IPA. And
So what happened in 500 BC? Do you know?
well, the Earth didn't even exist according to the creationists. It's only 5,000 years old, so I don't know if 2,000, 6,000 or something, whatever.
Well, yeah, but 500.
Oh
BC.
no, that would have been that'd be
Yeah, you're going backwards.
Oh,
You're
I'm
going the
five-
wrong direction.
500. Yeah,
You're not helping your
500.
cause. Jeez.
500. So 500 BC would have been
I mean,
Anybody?
It's
Pyramids?
talking about the redwoods and saying that, I don't know.
Well, some of those trees out
It's
there.
saying California coastal redwoods, one of the oldest living species in North America.
Yep. There's have you seen the picture you seen on social media where they had the tree's so big they had to stitch the picture together with like all these pictures, and it goes back like 1,200 or 1,400 years or something.
Yep.
You should check that out.
500 BC.
So I'm gonna be checking that out this week, and then I also, oh crap, what's the name of it? I bought one last week at the Aviator Bottle Shop that sucks. I can't remember the name, but it came with like a chalice with a gold rim on it. So anyway,
so every time you have
big drink,
something's
something's got a rim.
with you.
Oops,
sorry.
So what about this week we have the tragedy in Paris, and so I know we laugh and joke a lot, but that was you know, just I just don't get where killing someone ever is a solution to anything. I don't get that. And then we have the whole political storm, etc., that's feeding off that with the Syrians and the refugees, and you know, I guess the only thing I'll say about that, not to be too heavy, is sometimes I think we lose our humanity. We allow fear, hate, we allow those actions of others to change how we think and feel and how we act. And that's a natural human thing. Something bad happens and we react. But unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of that. And I don't know what's going to happen. I did hear something recently. I was listening to a podcast, and it was a guy in England who does a lot of work with kids in like inner city type kids, and not just inner city, but places that's like his nonprofit, the government will go to and say, hey, we have a school that's not working, will you run this school? And so the government will actually they'll just give them the school, and the tax money they'll use to run it, and they change the school around and all that. But he was talking about the UK, like a big problem right now is kids being radicalized, where kids are not, you know, maybe they've had a hard life and they're looking for something, you know, and they want to believe in something, they want to fight for something. He actually said, like, in the UK, they were actually creating like these public service announcement commercials about not going. But he said they're almost having the opposite effect, because it's like, it's showing war and fight, like all these things that a teenage boy would be like, oh, I want to do that. And it was like, don't do this. And he's like, it's just kind of, you know, but it's a big issue for them in England. And I can't remember the percent he said, but it was higher than I would have thought of teenagers that are actually going to Syria and to fight with ISIS. So I think over here we see that sometimes, but we're so isolated by the oceans that we don't, you know, we're protected in a way and we don't deal with it as much. But
well, I think when you have people that, I mean, like you said, disenfranchised, you know, just a hard life struggle. I mean, there's always, without any hope or something outside of that, those kinds of things look very enticing when you're
well, you see people, you know, in jail all the time come to some type of faith and religion. You know, their backs against a wall.
Well, people, I mean, more than anything in life, I think people want acceptance, whatever gang you're in, right? Yeah. Whether it's ISIS or whatever, people at work, your friends, everybody wants to belong somewhere. And when people don't feel belonged, or when they get ostracized because they look different, whatever, from a different place, and they're in a country, you know, like, then you're open to that because somebody is there to be your group, right?
Yep. And you know, one other thing on this, and then we'll move on to maybe sports, but you know, something like that happens in Paris and we attack. I mean, you retaliate. That's what we do. But what is the difference between that and, say, the Bloods and the Crips? And because we as a society look at gangs and say, hey, they should stop killing each other. But the Blood's killing the Crip because the Crip killed the Blood, vice versa. And it goes back and forth. But countries do the same thing. Like, you kill us, we kill you. And then they kill you, and then they kill you. I mean, and like, it's a different scale, and we legitimize it because it's a government protecting people. But what's the difference between the U.S. protecting itself or France protecting itself and the guy in Long Beach or wherever, or, you know, protecting their turf? I mean, it might sound different, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing.
Well, I think the thing that, I mean, I think you're protecting, it gets all swallowed up in their ideals and their beliefs, right? So now it's democracy versus whatever. I mean, I thought it was interesting. I was reading something the other day, and it was talking about how nothing's going to change until they're able to delegitimize ISIS and their beliefs, like the jihadist side of Islam and that thing, like we did with communism. Like that got ripped up and destroyed as a belief system, and it crumbled, right?
Yeah.
But nothing is crumbling this belief system because there's nobody on the, on the right. People are just going crazy, hating all, putting all Islam in one big bucket and saying get rid of all of them. And then on the left, they're wanting to not say anything strongly against Islam, against this radical piece of Islam. And it's like that with any group. I mean, there's Christians that, you got Westboro Baptist or whatever, that just crazy friends that doesn't represent all of
Did
Christianity.
you see that article
right?
this
And
week?
so, but anyway, they're just talking about how that struggle between those two sides, there's nobody that's in a sane spot that's challenging and delegitimizing the radicalness of it, and until that happens, it's going to be hard for there to be anything that, I mean, it makes you think about it. If somebody was able to come along and it was just like, I was thinking about it in the terms of like civil rights and what happened in like with Martin Luther King Jr. and like the country saw like those people just walking and getting, tore by the police and shot with water hose, all this stuff, and then like it legitimatized what was happening. It was like it changed things. It was like, this isn't right, and there's
I think
what
that
will be the same of that.
One dynamic that probably helped that here, though, is that as a whole, even though the government or local government was often on the wrong side, at our core, there is some freedom that exists. And in places where groups like that have taken control, there really isn't. They just kill you if you disagree. So at some point, you may have, let's say, I just throw, for argument's sake, if there's, 1,000 people in a village, and you have 800 of them don't want this, but 200 of them have the power and the guns and the weapons. What are you going to do? You're going to die, or you're going to just kind of go along? There was an article this week on a lot on social media. I can't remember if it was New York Times, whoever wrote it, but it was about Westboro Baptist, and she was a family member, and she actually ran their Twitter account, and how she started interacting with like these people who were attacking them, but how over time it started changing her mind, and she started like building relationships with people through the
Twitter, social media,
Twitter sphere, whatever. And eventually her and her sister left the group. Now, she doesn't even like believe in the Bible and all that. I'm not sure what she would say about God, but like she's totally turned her back. And they said that actually like a LGBT group had bought a house like across the street from the church to kind of be there as a balance or whatever. And that even Phelps, before he died, like was getting pushed out because he was, I'm not saying he had changed, but he was starting to be a little different. And they said one night, like, he walked out of the church and looked across the street and said, "You are good people. You're good people." But there's some new dude that's come in that's like not part of the family, and he's like all like, he's got the banner. But it's just interesting how social media changed her, like, in relationships. Like, one was she met with this like Jewish group, and they would go back and forth, and then she'd met him at rallies, and then there was another guy she met, and just like the relationship, it's like it's easy to not like people when you don't know somebody, but then when you meet them and know them, then you're like, oh, well, they're not evil. And
I think that's a big piece, is having the, it's like, I think the whole thing is hard, right? I mean, it's hard, but I think for me, like when I was up in New Jersey and went to seminary, and I was in a history class, and we talked a lot about Islam, and just what Islam preserved of Greek thought way back when, that we wouldn't have, and wouldn't have brought Europe out of the Middle Ages, and everybody forgets about that. But part of that class, we went to the mosque and went and talked to the imam and went through a prayer service or whatever. This was years ago, so stuff wasn't. It was after 9/11, and I'm in New Jersey, so it and
Sure.
people there are sensitive. But just doing that, like you said, now you're like in a room with people. I mean, it's just different, right? I mean, if you don't have that experience, it's hard to put it into words.
I knew in years past some Caucasian people who were probably not the most racially sensitive. I mean, they were racist, but the people that were minorities that they worked with, they didn't view that way. Oh, they're not like the rest of them because they knew them.
Yeah. You couldn't have it. Yeah, but to get off that topic, I mean, my last thing, my favorite thing, I have social media. I try not to look at it this week because it'll drive you crazy. But my favorite thing I've seen so far was I just find it fascinating. It was talking about how, and I think the whole refugee thing is totally hard. I don't even know what the right answer is, but it was talking about how Jesus and his family got persecuted by Herod.
Oh yeah.
He was trying to kill him, and they were basically Middle Eastern refugees
That's right.
that fled to Egypt.
Yep.
And somebody took them in, or I mean, we don't know what happened when they got there, or whatever. But they lived there for like 3 years, and I just thought that was fascinating. Where you have that juxtaposed with other stuff in the Bible that you forget happened in Syria. I mean, it's just a crazy
Paul
thing.
on the road to Damascus, and he's prayed for by Syria and all that.
Yeah.
Have you ever read Anne Rice's books about Christ?
Some of them.
She has 3, I think. I've read 2. They're really good. But in that, it's like they went to Alexandria or something. Is the idea? I mean, it's really her books.
Well, you forget
are
that
phenomenal,
stuff,
man.
like
I mean,
my sense of geography is horrible.
Oh, sure.
But you forget where stuff is and what stuff happened in the Bible.
Well, the whole Egypt
crosses
thing
over.
too, with them like always going to Egypt. Now maybe
Yeah.
Egypt was a world power and all that. So let's close out with something with sports.
Yeah, Duke lost to Kentucky. That sucked.
All right.
Madison
So-
had a fundraiser at school. And a
Hun
guy-
River Peanut Caramel Cluster.
hang on a second.
Peanut Caramel Cluster.
Let's open those up.
Are we allowed to open this up?
Yes. Guy came in, bought $35 worth of candy for the fundraiser, and then he was like, "Take it home to your kids."
We had a
Yeah, my
fundraiser, but
kids
it
are
was
super
like
as it is.
they had to run laps. Here you go. I don't want to cut anybody. So what were we going to talk about? Anything with sports?
I said the big game was Duke versus Kentucky, but Duke lost.
That
was
Duke versus Kentucky.
Yeah, they're very young.
What did we do? There was something. Duke and Carolina.
We already talked about that the other day.
Yeah, but after the game.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We talked about it last week. We don't need to talk about it again. These are very good.
$6 for 4 ounces.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is very nice.
I'll just take
No, you got to be on this side of the camera to get some of those.
Where are they?
They're like,
What you got?
Tony Romo is
Yeah.
back this week.
Get one.
Awesome.
but he's still gonna stink.
Robbie
Cowboys
bought them
stuff.
and then told me to take them to my
That's
kids.
really good.
Anything else?
My kids don't need
I don't think
any more
so.
sugar.
I mean,
Madison loves those.
urgent.
Yeah, but my kids are
Peyton Manning is
very
struggling.
Yeah. He can't even tie his own shoes.
They're not hyper. They have a lot of energy.
Some days I don't want to tie my shoes.
All right.
They do.
Peace out.
Next week.